Hi VC, this is Beverly with a response video. I simply had to decide to do a response to Ron Haggerty's, what was it, how did he put it? Worst to first, I think it was. He did a worst to first on Def Leppard's albums. And I was in shock. Which is fine, you know. Everybody it's just interesting how everybody's different, obviously, but I was in shock, I have to say, because Ron had put this as second bottom, and which means you've got pretty much all the claptrap that came after this. He ranks as better, which I so. Obviously, that's absolutely fine, of course. I just thought it would be kind of fun to do a response to this, because I kind of see Def Leppard a little bit different than most people, I guess. Because, well, I'm a fan of the old school, the original from the 80s, and I consider the band to have died in 1991 along with Steve. And you know, I guess not everybody feels that way, obviously, but that's kind of how I see it. But plus, Steve, he meant so much to me in different ways. You know, not just because he was in the band. For some reason, he had a profound effect on my life. For some reason, but that's another story anyway. But so I wanted to do a response just for the pure fun of it, actually. So, Ron, I'm sure you'll most of you will be subscribed to Metal Ron, or Ron Haggerty, I think is his channel is at the moment. But if not, I will put a link to his channel below, and you can go and subscribe, and you can check out his worst to first. So I'm going to get started on mine, and basically, as I say, since I'm only a fan of the Clark era, if you like, there's only 5 albums that interest me at all. Well, there's actually only 4. The 5th one holds a little bit of interest, but it's no big deal. So if I'm going to rank them in worst to first fashion, this will come at the bottom, and it's Adrenalize. Because the 4 albums that came prior to this are all better than this, as far as I'm concerned. Adrenalize was... Steve was involved in the writing and some of the music for this album. He came up with bits and pieces here and there, but died before it was completed, before it was finished, obviously. And some of the songs were subsequently written after he died, because he's in the songwriting credits for, I don't know, about 6 or 7 of the songs, I think. And I'm glad to say that the ones he's not involved in are pretty atrocious, as it happens. But Adrenalize, for me, is extremely processed. It sounds... There's such a processed sound to the whole thing. The vocals are just overdone. The guitars, the tonal qualities, the guitar sounds are just so processed. I'm going to leave the drums alone, because, you know, Rick Allen had just lost his arm come Hysteria, hence the electronic drum kit. It was his first, you know, time playing drums since a major life-changing issue, if you like. And I think, you know, it continued on to this album. So the drums are what they are, and for what they are, they're okay. But Let's Get Rocked is such a cheesy embarrassment. It's just hilarious. Make Love Like a Man, the title says it all. More cheese. White Lightning. It had been said somewhere that Steve was involved in writing some of this, but I don't think he was. He isn't credited for the writing of this. I think this all came about after he died, but it's about Steve. The lyrics and all that are they're about people struggling with issues and stuff like that, and it's actually quite a depressing, miserable song. They say it's a tribute to him, but I don't really rate it that great as a tribute. It's plus again the sound, the tones. The thing after, see, one of the things that Steve brought to the music is he brought feeling and emotion to the guitar sounds, and there's none of that. I don't think, and it's no real disrespect to Phil, he did all the guitars on this, he did his own and Steve's parts, but he's just not the same player, obviously. Nobody is, everyone's individual, and you just don't get that with Phil. It's very clinical sounding. People might say that about Hysteria, but I don't think Hysteria's kind of as bad as that. Hysteria, I'll get to that in a minute. But so yeah, this is the worst for me, and I class this as Def Leppard's, the original Def Leppard's last album, if you want. I mean, 1992 it came out, but it's Tear It Down. That initially came out as the B-side to Animal. In the UK anyway. I think it's the B-side to something else in the States, but it was a B-side to Animal, and originally recorded back in 87, and the original 87 recording's better than the redone 92 version. Have you ever needed someone so bad? It's another thing. Ron Haggerty hates Love Bites for some reason. Well, I hate Have You Ever Needed Someone So Bad. I think it's another big cheesy mush. Whereas, I'll talk about Love Bites in a minute. So yeah, that's the bottom. And as for the next one, it basically depends on what mood I'm in, because the rest, these four, are the other four for me. And sorry about the glare there, but I don't have a favourite as such. I can't label them in order of 1 to 4, because I love them all. And I love them all for kind of different reasons, because they're all very different sounding albums. So it depends on what mood I'm in. If I was to say at this particular moment, I would put on Through the Night as my number one album at the moment, because I've been playing that quite a bit lately. I just love it. It's raw, it's, the young, new wave of British heavy metal time. No frills. The only problem with On Through the Night is it was a little bit overproduced, hence the not so good quality as it could have sounded. But as I say, people say Hysteria was overproduced, but Hysteria to me was perfectly produced. Everything's right about it. There's not too much of this or not enough of that. It's just. And it was technology wise, it was the latest state of the art thing. So yeah, so I'll just go to Hysteria right now. I mean, I adore this album. It's unique in its own right. There is not another rock album or music album in modern, popular, hard rock, metal, soft rock, pop, whatever you want to go through, but modern music, there is nothing else like this. This is a standalone album that kind of doesn't sound like anything else, and nothing else sounds anything like it. They attempted to sound a bit like it with this, but it's miles away, to be honest with you. And the way this album was written and constructed, they wanted to go in a different direction. Steve himself, this is what I like about these 4 albums. Each album is a progression in Steve Clark's development as a musician. And that's what fascinates me about each one of them as well. And by this album, he wanted to try doing different things with the guitars. He wanted to orchestrate them, just why you've got different little bits of guitars, just small little bits that sound not much of anything on their own, but when you put them all together, you orchestrate them and fit them into the slots, it all sounds very different and interesting. You know, and obviously that's kind of the thing, and obviously with the vocals as well on this, I think Mutt Lange pushed the band to the limits. I know that Joe Elliott struggled hugely getting Love Bites right. Obviously he had to go high. And to be honest with me, I think Joe Elliott's actually knackered his voice. He doesn't sound... His voice nowadays, he can't do the high notes he ever used to, obviously. But I think because he's sort of screeched too much, if I'm honest. But I've always said the studio is what made Joe Elliott sound good. You know, the studio technology kind of helped out there. But Love Bites is on this album, and for me, it's one of my favourite ballads of this band, because it's not so much the vocals, it's the guitars again. You know, the tonal qualities, the sound. Steve Clark plays a Stratocaster in this, and he's normally a Gibson man, but the Strat has a specific sound, and it's almost some kind of liquid fluid, because he plays the guitar solo completely on clean tones. There's no distortion on the solo of this, which is kind of cool for a rock album. Whereas on Adrenalize, you just get this processed, overdubbed and layered. I don't get that as much with this. Yeah, they did layer some guitars, but it's not as full on as this. So amazing on its own right, and it's joint number one. It's joint number one with this, which is completely different. Obviously, this was their debut from 1980. But for the band at the age they were at this time, and when Steve joined the band, you know, the songwriting accelerated at a great rate. And you know, they were doing the harmony chords things, because Thin Lizzy and bands like that, Led Zeppelin, they were all influences at the time. Loads of them, Queen, etc. The overture, it's an epic. You know, there's just some really catchy, solid hard rock, fast-paced songs on here. There's some mid-tempo stuff, a couple of slower ones, but I mean, even the overture, it starts off slow and then goes really fast. It's kind of a Zeppelin-esque kind of pattern to it, if you like. And you know, Joe Elliott's voice here is a lot less screechy, obviously. It's a bit more natural sounding, to be honest with you. And as I say, for the age they were at, this absolutely tremendous album. It's just pure rock delight. So that's joint number one, and also joint number one, High and Dry. This was the follow-up to On Through the Night, their second, and the first time they got Mutt Lange to produce. He had just finished working on AC/DC's Back in Black and Foreigners 4. He'd done an album for the Cars, I think. So he'd come off of the back of these albums, and a lot of people have said this sounds very AC/DC-esque, and it does sound, the guitars do sound a little bit like that, but the songwriting style is different to AC/DC. And every song, well, nearly every song on here is fantastic. I mean, Let It Go, it doesn't get any better than that. Bringing On the Heartbreak and Switch 625 is the instrumental ending, you know, and it's just a great piece of guitar work. You Got Me Running, Lady Strange, On Through the Night, Mirror, 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 I love it. It's very... there's something about that song, you know, just the notes that Steve's used make it sound, I don't know, there's it just escapes me now, but there's a kind of, I don't know, I want to say Indian flavour, but I don't think it is Indian, it's something else actually, but it escapes me, to be honest with you. But the only song I'm not too keen on here is No No No. It's okay, but it's not great. I'd probably say that's my least favourite on the album. But yeah, it's so good. It's just hard rock at its best, you know, for the early 80s. And finally, joint number 1, Pyromania. This was my first Pyromania on CD. Actually, I saw this in HMV, and it was the original master recording on Ultra Disc. But again, this is another great album, and it was the third album, another step up in the development of the songwriting for Steve. Now this album had been more or less written pretty much before Phil Collins came along, and he did a couple of he put down a couple of solos for a couple of the songs. I think he did solos for Photograph, Stage Fright, Foolin' and Rock of Ages. I think these were the 4 that Phil did sort of solo parts for. And yeah, the one he did for Photograph fits the song perfectly. So there's you know, but the whole overall, I mean, there's an epic on every one of these albums, and this one, it's Die Hard the Hunter. That is my favourite song on this album. It's just so another Steve Clark masterpiece. And this is what it is for me with Def Leppard, is the musicality, and they kind of lost all that, unfortunately. And for me, it's just one of these bands that could never recover from the loss of such an important member. I mean, you do get them. You could sort of say the same about Queen, obviously, with it being Freddie. But Queen go about it the right way for me, to be honest. They go out there now with other people, and they make a point, you know, this is us, but you're not getting Freddie, you're getting someone else, kind of thing. So, yeah, I love Coming Under Fire. That's a song they've never played live either. But I just love that whole song. The guitars are kind of cool in it as well. Too Late for Love, great. Foolin', great. Billy's Got a Gun, class. So yeah, that's it. And that's it. As far as the rest of them go, I had Slang when it first came out. I was obviously curious at this time. I hadn't completely lost all interest in them by this point, but when I heard Slang, I thought, what a load of cack. I got Euphoria, which was kind of it was an even poorer version of this. And after Euphoria, that was it. I thought, I'm not wasting my time on this band any longer. They're just a total shadow of their former self. So I don't have any of the others to show. I make no apologies for it, because in my opinion they're not worth showing. So that's my response to Ron Haggerty. As I say, you've got the worst and first, you know. Pretty simple for me. But as I say, I kind of see Def Leppard pretty much in a bit of a different light than most people. But I thought this would be kind of cool to do. So if anyone has any questions, or I hope to see maybe other responses to Ron, Tim Line would be a good responder, John Vinylizer definitely. Who else likes Def Leppard? I'm not sure, but you know, if anyone else wants to kind of do a response, it's always interesting to see how people rate albums from worst to first, sort of thing. Anyway, get subbing to Ron if you haven't already done, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye just now.